So this session, we're going to introduce you all to the Google Plus sign-in and the Google Plus platform. You may have seen the Google Plus sign-in for the very first time this morning during the keynote, or you've browsed the docs and want to get started. So this session is for you. We're going to go over the core features of the Google Plus platform and the Google Plus sign-in button, and show you just enough code to give you the right set of context. Before we get too far into it, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Jonathan Beri. I'm a developer advocate on the Google Plus platform. If you have questions about the session afterwards, or want to learn more about the Google Plus platform, and just generally talk to somebody on the Google Plus team, add me to your circles. That's a link to my profile. That's the best way to get a hold of me. And yeah, I'm responsive, and you can ask me technical questions or anything else. I'm also joined by my colleague from Google Plus.
Hi, I'm Ridhima, a technical leader in Google Plus platform.
Awesome. Thank you, Ridhima. So today's agenda, we're going to cover 4 main areas of the Google Plus platform. The first and most important is the Google Plus sign-in button. This is a widget, a plugin, a snippet of code that you can add to your applications to enable users to connect their Google accounts to your services. And with it, we add a little bit of Google magic that we're going to show you in a little bit later. Once the user signed in, they've granted access to their Google profile. So you can start integrating that profile, making a personalized and engaging experience, and a returning user. With Google Plus sign-in, we also introduced a new form of sharing, a type of targeted sharing that enables users to reach out to their friends on Google and then bring them back to your app in an engaged way, so they can start using your application in a social way instantaneously. And the last piece we're going to cover is what we call app activities. This is a way to enable you to write activities to Google that users are doing within your app, and then Google will surface those activities in meaningful times across Google at the right moment for the right user. Great. So let's start thinking social. I work with a lot of developers, and they tell me the same thing. I want to use social platforms. I want to integrate social into my applications, but I don't know where to begin. Let's pause for a minute and think about, what does it mean to be social in our daily lives? It's really about 2 things, people and connections. So similarly, to enable social within your applications, it's about bringing people and connections into your apps. And the reason why you want to do that as a developer is to acquire new users and increase engagement. And in fact, with the Google Plus platform and Google Plus sign-in, the features we built were targeted to make sure that we can help you get new users and increase engagement. And throughout this talk, we'll mention those features, where they help you get new users and increase engagement. And a bit of a spoiler, it's all the features, all right? Great. So let's talk about the Google Plus sign-in. And where it starts with a button. The Google Plus sign-in is a button you can add to your web apps, to your mobile apps, Android, iOS. It's a plugin, it's a widget, it's a piece of HTML that enables users to connect their Google account with your service. It's a seamless experience to allow them to authorize you to start accessing their profile information. And when you add the Google Plus sign-in button to your apps, you can be confident that users are going to start to use it as a way to log in. That's because Google is a trusted brand, a brand built on privacy and security. We have things like 2-factor authentication, multi-login, and the controlled sharing of circles that get carried over with the Google Plus sign-in product. And as a developer, Google handles the authorization for you, which is a very complicated problem that we help you solve. So the user clicks that button, and we take them through the authorization flow. Here's the authorization screen that a user might see if they're using Jolie Cloud. And there's 3 major sections. There's the branding at the top, the set of permissions you're asking the users to confirm, and the ability for them to accept or deny your request. Let's walk through each part. So the top is the branding. This is controlled by you as a developer to let the user know who they're about to sign into. Now let's walk through those permissions. The very first line is the basic Google Plus API permissions. This enables you as a developer to access the user's public profile information, things like their first and last name, their profile picture, their Google ID, and anything else they might have enabled on their profile to be public. But it also includes the people that they follow in their circles. This is a flat list of the people and the pages that they've added on Google+. And you'll notice there's an edit list option. This is the very first place that we provide control and trust to the user so they can say who you as a developer know about in their circles. This creates confidence for the Google Plus sign-in as a login solution. The next line is another permission. This is actually the Google Drive permission. So with Google Plus sign-in, we enable you to use multiple Google APIs in a single authorization flow. This is very powerful because Google provides a lot of great services that could benefit you as a developer, and the user only has to authorize those services in a single dialog. The next line is their Google email. This is their official email they use to log in every single day. There's not a form field they might mistype that email or a spam account they might want to not deal with if they register for your service. So you can trust that this is their real Google email. So if you have existing user accounts and you see this email, this is most likely that user. And if you get emails from other networks, you can use that as a join to combine user accounts. And the last bit is the permission to write app activities on behalf of that user. And like the list field, the user can control just exactly who can see their activities and which activities are being written on their behalf. So now for that magic. A little bit of the Google magic. When a user signs in to the Google Plus sign-in button, and you have an app in the Google Play Store, if that user has an Android device, when they click that button in that flow, we will ask them, would you like to install this Android app as well? And Google handles that for you. So we're pushing your Android app directly to engaged users who are already connected with your service directly to the phone in their pocket. They don't even have to take it out. This is the #1 easiest way for Android developers to acquire Android users. And this is one of those features that seeing is believing. So let's watch a short clip from one of our integration partners.
The main driver behind our success is having a product that's easy to use and delights our customers. Over-the-air install provides users with a seamless experience. They create their account or log into it for the first time, and our Android application is automatically installed on the user's smartphone so that they can have a delightful first-time experience.
Awesome, huh? And as we saw in the keynote today, if they've logged in already on the web, they have that Android app on their phone, they're seamlessly signed in with seamless sign-on across platforms. Now, we've been out for about 2 months now, and we're seeing fantastic conversion rates for users. So we announced just yesterday that 40% of users who see this dialog say yes. And that doesn't include the users who already have your Android app installed. So this is a #1 way to get new Android users. So now I'm going to turn it over to Ridhima to show us some of that code to add the Google Plus sign-in button to your applications.
Thank you, Jonathan. When we designed Google Plus sign-in, one of our key goals was to reduce integration complexity for developers. It really is amazingly simple to integrate this into your application. For example, we use OAuth 2 to allow the user to authorize your app, but all the implementation details are completely hidden away from you. You don't have to worry about any implementation detail regarding OAuth 2. This integration simplicity has been extended across all the different platforms that we support, be it web, Android, or iOS. If you remember nothing else from this talk, please remember our developer site, developers.google.com/plus. We have quick start, sample code, reference material to guide you through your development. Let's quickly talk through all the integration steps. The very first step is to go to the API console and register your application. On doing that, you will receive a client ID. Please make note of this client ID. We will use it in the sign-up process to identify your application. Now let's take the web JavaScript library for an example. What does it take to put that button on your web page? You need to load a single JavaScript library from Google, and you need to add markup on your page where you want us to render the button. That's it. We take it from there. We will parse your page and render the button based on the configuration options that you specify. The button will be rendered localized in the language of the currently logged in Google user, and we also allow you to use custom styling to tweak the look of the button. All we ask is that you respect our branding guidelines. These are posted on the developer site that I mentioned earlier. Let's talk through the different options that are available. By specifying the gSignIn class, you tell us where in your DOM you want us to render the button. Remember the client ID we just fetched from the API console. You need to specify that here so that we can identify your application. So when you walk through the consent dialog, we saw that your app can ask the user for certain permissions. Plus.login is the very basic scope for Google Plus platform integration, which allows you to fetch the user's profile data, meaning their name, profile URL, age range, gender. It also allows you to fetch the people in the user's circles. In addition, it allows you to write back different activities that the user is taking within your app back to Google so that we can surface it in interesting and relevant contexts. Your app may require additional permissions. So for example, if you need to access the user's files, you would ask for the drive scope here. Suppose you use Wallet as part of your payment solution. You would also ask for the payments.makePayment scope here. By specifying a cookie policy, you allow us to optimize performance by caching OAuth2 tokens by storing cookies on your site. The complete documentation for this is available on our developer site. Remember these app activities we keep talking about that you can write back to Google? Using request visible actions, you specify what are the different activity types that you would like to write back. There are over 10 different activity types to choose from, and you can specify more than one activity type here. For example, if you wanted to write back user purchase events, you would specify the buy activity here. You can specify a JavaScript callback that will be called on a successful auth result. This could be as a result of the user clicking accept on the consent dialog, or as a result of auto-approval in case the user has ever authorized your app before on Android or web. In any case, in this callback, we recommend that you hide the sign-in button, and you can go ahead and personalize your app to give the user a better experience. So here is the code snippet that you would need to add to your page to load the JavaScript library we talked about earlier. This is the same +1.js that we use for all Google Plus plugins, including the +1 button. So if you have integrated +1 already on your site, you would already have this code snippet and you don't need to add it again. +1.js parses the page and renders the button based on your configuration options. As Jonathan just showed you, one of the most amazing features of Google Plus Sign-In is driving over-the-air installs of your Android app right from the sign-in flow. It's completely trivial for you to set up. All you do is specify the app package name, and we will take it from there. We will decide how and when to show the dialog and all the different error conditions. As I mentioned earlier, this integration simplicity extends across mobile platforms as well. On Android, we provide Google Play services. This is a background service already running on most Android devices that lets you easily make Google API calls. This means that to invoke the sign-in flow, you call connect on the plus connect library, and the sign-in flow initiates. Similarly, we have a native SDK for iOS. To start the sign-in flow, you would need to configure the GPP sign-in shared singleton instance. Then you can go ahead and make authenticated calls once the user authorizes your app. So now that we have an authenticated user, Jonathan will tell you more about how you can personalize your site to give the user a good experience.
Thank you, Ridhima. So the user is connected with your service and has allowed you to access their Google account. So at this point, you want to start personalizing that experience, integrating their Google information to make their logged-in view personal to them. You can start integrating their profile to make it an engaging new user experience. You can streamline registration, or you can even forgo registration altogether and start pulling their profile and making them the new user. You could also start using their circles, the people in their circles, and suggest content and connections based on that data. So let's take a look at two examples. So this is Flixster.com, who's already integrated Google Plus Sign-In. And this is one of my real accounts. You can see they pulled in my profile information, so I know which account I'm logged into. They have my first and last name that they've pulled in directly. I've never typed that in. And behind the scenes, they're doing a few other things which are not clear here. But they have my Google email. So they're actually sending me email notifications when videos and films that I'm tracking are now in theaters or available to purchase. On the side, they actually pull in my Google Plus circles. These are friends of mine who are using Google Plus Sign-In and are using Flixster. So this way, I can start tracking their activity and see what they're doing right on Flixster. And this is a pretty powerful integration, integrating circles to help me discover my friends. But using that same data, you could have a more meaningful experience. Let's take a look at Banjo. Banjo is another integration partner of Google Plus SignIn, and they do something very powerful here. What they do is they take a bunch of different social networks, and they do joins across those networks, and they help me discover people I might be interested based off of my social connections. So by taking the people in my circle, these connections that I talked about earlier, you can make for a more meaningful experience. This is an engagement tool. You can use social connections to help users discover new content, whether that be new people to follow, or maybe a new interesting video that their friends are watching right now. Again, this is helping those users stay longer and interact more deeply. Ridhima, to see some code.
Thank you, Jonathan. So now that we have an authenticated user, we can start making authenticated API requests to fetch their social data, like their profile data or their friends. We have client libraries in all major languages and native SDKs for mobile. Once again, let's look at web for an example. So for our client libraries, we have built on common infrastructure that we call the discovery service. Using metadata, we dynamically build native methods for an API. This means that you only have to use a single client library for any Google API call. So if you're making any Google API calls in your application, you would already be familiar with these client libraries. Loading the +1.js code snippet defines the GAPI global object. We can use this now to load different client modules. In order to make social API calls, we would load the +v1 module here. If we had wanted to make calendar API calls, we would have loaded the calendar v3 module here. Loading the +v1 module defines the GAPI client plus object. Now, if you want to fetch the user's profile data, you would call people.get on this object. You would need to specify the user ID which you want to fetch data for. If you want to fetch data for the currently logged in Google user, we provide you a shortcut me. Similarly, if you had wanted to fetch the user's friends, we would call people.list on the same object, again specifying the same user ID parameter, for which you again have the shortcut me. In addition, you would need to specify the collection visible parameter to fetch those friends that are visible to your app as selected by the user. Now that we have defined the function, we can execute it, providing a JavaScript function that will receive this profile data and actually personalize your app. Now that we understand how personalization works, Jonathan will tell you how Google Plus Platform provides interactive sharing.
Thank you, Ridhima. So if your application has content, users want to share that. And as a developer or content creator, you want them to be sharing that content so you get more users. But we've noticed a problem with social sharing today. Let's say you convince somebody that this is worth sharing, and they'll share it out to their networks. Their friends may see that on their already busy stream. If something really catches their eye, they may click on that link and go to your site. If it's a video, they might watch it, they might drop out, and you'll have a bounce rate. But you really are not getting the kind of engagement that you're really looking for. So we set out to do a new type of sharing, a form of targeted sharing that enables users to reach out to their friends on Google and then bring them to your app with the mindset to already start engaging. And we call this interactive posts. Let's walk through an interactive post. So the first thing you'll notice, this looks like a social share. It has a share button. There's a link associated with it, and it's very similar to the other types of shares we do on Google today. But the most obvious difference is a big button, a call to action button. This is a button that when it shows up in the stream will stand out, and it's clickable. So if a user sees that and is interested in the description and the copy, they will click on that button, and it will take them somewhere. Where we take them is a deep link that you provide. Whether they're on mobile or web, we will route them to the context that you specify. And that should be the context that I originally shared out the interactive post. That deep link will also take them directly to your app. And if you don't have the app, we will help you get that. We'll help that user get your app. So interactive posts is not only a great way to increase engagement through a targeted share, but it's also a way to capture new users. So a few more things about the interactive post. As a developer, you can pre-fill the text. So you can Set up the context of the share, and if a user likes what they see, they can go ahead and share it, or they can edit it. What's really important about an interactive post, besides being targeted and interactive, is that it is user-generated. So when one of your friends receives an interactive post notification, they know it actually came from you. So that helps with conversion and making this share a more meaningful share for both the sender and the recipient. The last thing I want to highlight is the names at the top. So when you share, you have a target, you set the recipients. But as a developer, you can pre-fill the recipient targets. And this includes email. So if you already have users in your system with email from a username password or through another social network, you can target and pre-fill across networks via email. Extremely powerful, especially for marketing, especially for growing your cross-network user base. So let's walk through a scenario of an interactive post. And we're going to use OpenTable as an example. And OpenTable has integrated Google Plus Sign-In. And we're going to do just a little bit of role play here. So fast forward 3 days. We're all done with I/O. And the team wants to go out for a delicious dinner to celebrate a successful event. There's a fantastic ceviche place just down on the Embarcadero. But I want to make sure that the restaurant has options for everybody. So I start reviewing the menu. Looks good. There's vegetarian options, of course, ceviche, and a little pisco sour for those of us who need to relax a bit. And I want to share this out with the rest of the team so they can decide if they want to join. So OpenTable has integrated an interactive post button. This is a customizable button that looks right in their UI. When I click that button, I get that familiar dialog we just saw a moment ago. They have that view menu that when my friends see it and my colleagues see it, they'll know that there's a menu on the other side. So I go ahead and share it with Ridhima. Ridhima has her Android phone in her pocket, and she gets a little buzz. That buzz has a notification that somebody has directly shared something with her, which is an interactive post. It's a notification that actually stands out above others so that she knows that there's something waiting for her, like a direct message. She clicks on that notification, and she's taken to the stream where she can see that full share with the pre-filled text that OpenTable provided, the image, and that call to action button. When she clicks on that call to action button, there's a deep link behind it, and we take her directly to the context that OpenTable wanted her to, which is the menu that I was originally sharing. So now she's in OpenTable, engaging directly, reviewing the menu, and can confirm that reservation at a later point in time. We have over 100 different labels for our call to actions. These are configurable labels, and we're seeing developers adding multiple types. Because this goes beyond a standard social share, there's an action associated with it. So let's say you're a publisher site and you have video content. You might want to have a watch button, where users click that button and they're taken to a video that starts automatically. Or you have sorry, that was a podcast one. We also have listen and watch. Let's say you're an educational site, and you want to take users straight to the content so that to avoid registration, you might have a learn button. And if you have your own commenting system, you would have a comment and reply. Or of course, there's e-commerce solutions where you want to have a user see that buy button, see something they like, and when they click it, they're taken directly to the checkout page with that item pre-filled. We're also seeing partners combining it in multiple different ways and intelligent ways to make it part of your app. Not just a little share icon off the center, because they want to drive users to share more targetedly. And just like the rest of the platform, it's very easy to integrate. So back to Ridhima to show us that code.
Thank you, Jonathan. For interactive posts, we've built on existing Google sharing plugins and APIs, and all of our client libraries and mobile SDKs package it up for easy integration. We have built-in deep links. This means that no matter which device a user views an interactive post in, on clicking it, they will be taken to the right context within your application. Once again, let's take the web as an example. Just like the sign-in flow, the interactive post flow starts with a rendered button that you can configure through markup. Now, we've omitted some of the fields here, but if you look at the important bits, the call to action label can be specified by an enum, and the complete list is documented in our developer site. We just saw a preview of all the different actions that you can take. It could be buy, comment, view, watch, listen, you name it. The call to action URL is the URL at which the users will be taken to if they click on the interactive post on plus.google.com. The deep link ID takes the user directly to the right context within your application if they click on the post in one of the mobile versions of Google+. You can predefine a pre-filled text that will be populated in the share, which of course can be edited by the user. You can predefine a list of recipients up to 10 users. It can be specified in the form of Google user IDs or any email addresses. Do you notice some familiar fields here like client ID, scope, request visible actions? These are all similar to the sign-in flow. That is because the interactive post also takes the user through the sign-in flow if they have not already signed in. This is especially useful for the use case in which you want the user to sign in only when they want to share. So this is yet another way we help you get more signed-in users. For comparison, here is a snippet of the interactive post integration on iOS. As you can see, the syntax may be different, but the core pieces are exactly the same. So this is amazing for developers, since if you understand how interactive posts work on one platform, you can easily integrate it into any other platform. Now that we've talked about sharing, Jonathan will tell you how you can write back different app activities that the user takes within your site back to Google.
Thank you. So you have a logged in user, and they're taking all these actions. They might be uploading content, they might be reading, they might be creating new things. And all these actions are happening within your application, but other users don't know about this. It's not discoverable. So with Google+ Sign-In, we enabled something we call app activities. It's a way for you as a developer to write to Google so that we can surface those activities to other users across Google at the right time. We actually demoed this integration just the other week at TechCrunch Disrupt. So here's how one such integration would look like. So let's say a user searching for Fandango. Fandango has integrated Google+ Sign-In. All those activities that users are taking with their app, they're sending to Google. And Google is aggregating those activities, anonymizing them, to show other users what is trending on Fandango. This way, other Fandango users might discover new interesting content based off of Google users as a whole, or even help Fandango get new users by discovering their brand. These are clickable links in the knowledge cart that, like we saw before, are a deep link, which would take the user directly to Fandango, to the right context, to the video, where they can start seeing the trailer or even purchasing tickets. This is the direction we want to go with this product. We want to help you to surface your apps in more meaningful ways across Google by making those activities users are taking in a social context useful for others. And this is the very first place that we're integrating app activities. And just like the rest of the APIs, it's very easy to integrate.
Thank you, Jonathan. So now that you have a signed-in user, you can write back different app activities that the user takes within your site back to Google. And as Jonathan just showed, we can surface them in interesting and relevant contexts. We have already seen that we have client libraries in most popular languages and native SDKs for mobile. All we do now is use one of those client libraries and call an API to write these moments back to Google. So here's a sample of our Python client library. To write an activity back, you would need to specify the activity type. Again, for example, if you wanted to write back user purchase events, you would specify the by activity type here. This should be an activity type that you have already configured in your sign-in markup, and the user would have explicitly granted access to this type when they see the consent dialog. In addition, you would specify a target URL, which should contain the schema.markup for the activity type you have just specified. Now that we understand how the different pieces of the sign-in flow come together, Jonathan will summarize all that we have learned today.
Great. So let's do a little bit of a review. We saw the Google+ Sign-In button, the easiest way for you to acquire new users by enabling them to connect their Google account with your app. We saw how you can take that user and create a personalized experience with their Google profile and their connections on Google. We talked about how you can increase engagement by using interactive posts to get users to bring their friends back into your app and interacting immediately. And the last bit we just talked about are app activities that we can use to surface relevant information across Google. Now today, I went through everything very quickly and very briefly. There's a ton of detail to make this an awesome integration, depending on your platform and your type of integration. So throughout the rest of Google I/O, we have sessions on every feature in great detail from beginning with Android to best practices across the web, and boot camps, code labs to get you started and get you finished. So I suggest if you're interested in any of these topics, that you attend one of these, and if you're in the live stream, a lot of them will be available to watch as well. A quick credits to the images I used earlier, and I want to thank you for getting interested in Google+ Sign-In. 3 important links before we take questions. One is our developer site, which you've seen already. It's developers.google.com/plus. That's the overall developer site. We use our Google+ page and our Google+ community to engage with conversation and answer questions about different topics. So I suggest you add the Google+ developers page to your circles. And the last is our Stack Overflow page. This is where we do a lot of our support. So if you have technical questions that you can't figure out through the documentation, this is a great place to go. Again, my name is Jonathan Beri, joined by Ridhima, Kedia, and we thank you. Awesome, so we have plenty of time for questions. So for those who are here, come up to the mic. I'm going to try to figure out how I can do the online thing in a second. Let's start left first.
One puzzlement that I've had is the sign out from the app. I don't know whether it's best practice, because you can have them sign out completely out of Google or just sign out of your app. And how do you serve that to the customer so they understand if they're going to sign out of their Google account or just out of the app? And what's your recommended best practice for that?
So that's a great question. It's about sign out. We've seen a few different implementations of sign out. A lot of you developers just want to keep it logged in. Right? As long as they're logged into Google, they want to keep them logged into your service. But some users expect sign out. We made it really easy to disconnect. So when they want to disassociate their Google account with your service, we have an API that makes that easy. And we've seen already developers implement their own form of sign out. It really depends on their logic, how they treat a user, what it means to be signed in. Is it in the browser? Is it in the server? And we actually have a session on best practices where we talk about it, as well as authorization, where we talk a little bit more about sign out. But it's entirely depends on your integration.
I guess, let's say a person's traveling, they're at a hotel. Maybe they just signed out of your app, but they're still logged into their Gmail. Someone could go access their mail. Or they're at home, and they're doing their daily activities, and they sign out. You just signed them out of their Google account. So, you have to, how do you deal with that? It seems like it's confusing to the customer.
Typically, especially the services that do really care about sign out, is they track it themselves. So they'll use their own sort of cache, whether that be a cookie or local storage, to say this user signed out. Or if that user is in the server, then they're going to basically disassociate that server, that currently logged in session. So we can talk about more after, depending on how your app is built.
All right, thank you.
Sure thing. Let's go.
Yeah, I have a question about Android, but I guess it applies to any application. Let's say I want to use other Google APIs like tasks or Google URL shortening and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Can I use this and then add another scope and then ask only one set of permissions to the user, or it's something different and then I need to ask user multiple things like give me access to your Google Plus profile, give me access to let me put tasks or something like that.
Yeah, great question. The question is, can I use multiple scopes at one time?
Yeah.
And the answer is absolutely yes. We showed some snippet of code. Mm-hmm. Basically, when you set up the sign-in button, if it's Android, if it's iOS, it's web, you pass in multiple scopes. So we show the user an expandable dialog with each line representing a scope. And also for the mobile context, especially on Android, they also approve the hardware permissions as well, mm-hmm. that same single dialog.
So is there any reason to use the other Google account authentication process from the services? Like, it seems like it's better to use Google Plus, right?
So you mean the local account manager?
Yeah.
That's more of that's the current way, right? Mm-hmm. And now the Google Plus way gives you a lot more user information, so more about their profile, more about their connections. So you can make a lot more meaningful social app versus just knowing their email. Mm-hmm. So with Google Plus Sign-In, we provide you access to all those additional pieces of information about the user. Okay. So we recommend you use Google Plus Sign-In for that.
Cool, thank you.
Great presentation, really exciting what you're doing. My question is basically the same as what he had. Just want to make sure to clarify though. So my question is, if I start with a certain set of scopes, and then I want to escalate the user later, like I want to start with a certain set of scopes that are very limited, and I escalate, do I have then 2 OAuth tokens that I'm managing, or is it a single OAuth token? Because I could see that if I'm having to manage multiple tokens on my app side, So is it a single OAuth token that will be resolved at the end, or is it multiple, and do I have to do work? Can you just talk a little bit about that?
So you will get 2 OAuth tokens. We recommend you keep the later one because it will have the greater set of permissions, and revoke the older one, and then go ahead and use the later one.
Okay.
And we're also looking at how to make that a better experience.
Yeah.
So keep following our blog and our Google Plus page to learn more about how we're improving authorization and APIs.
Yeah, I built an app for GitHub, and I have like 400 OAuth tokens in there, and I didn't realize I was doing that. So that's something that, yeah, great.
Cool.
Thanks.
I like your app. This way.
So what about a sort of progressive enhancement? I wouldn't allow people to log in with any OAuth provider, but if they have a G+ account, get the additional capabilities. How would that work?
So when you mean any OAuth provider, do you mean outside of Google or?
Yes.
So we've seen a few solutions in the marketplace. Typically, it depends on which type of networks you're trying to target. If it's business-oriented product, if it's consumer-oriented product, if you have your own OAuth provider. But we think options is a good thing, but not too many, because that creates the paralysis of choice. So we're seeing usually, maybe 2 providers in a single dialog, depending on which are your 2 greatest networks, and you just can provide them as options. And then on your back end, you basically have a table of a user, and it's this social login versus Google social login, maybe username and password, and you can just kind of keep it as a unified record.
So I would have to have a sign-in with G+ and a sign-in with Gmail if they just had a Google account.
Oh, I see. No, so one thing that I hope I can convey is Google Plus Sign-In is the way we want developers to allow users to connect their Google account with your service. So think of Google as a Google sign-in. It's a Google Plus Sign-In with signing with your Google account. So you should use Google Plus Sign-In as your Google way to authenticate. If you want to, let's say, support GitHub, then you could provide that as a secondary sign-in option and combine the user accounts that way. Cool. Question?
Well, I think you might have mentioned this, but really simple question. When you mentioned that for the deep links, if you don't have the app, does Google Play do anything to carry that referring source through the installation process?
Yes.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
So on Android, if I'm on the Android app, the new beautiful Android app, I click that deep link. The user doesn't have your app installed. We will take them to the Play Store. We'll prompt them to install it. When they're done, they'll get a notification saying, do you want to continue to that deep link? So they'll actually go exactly to the right deep link, and we'll pass the deep link to your app. Even on iOS, we help the user go to the App Store, and we help them get to the final deep link as well.
Okay, how does that work on iOS?
We can talk more about the specifics, but essentially we take them to the App Store, and we use the paste bin to get them as a saved link, and they can go all the way through. So mostly they get there.
Okay, thanks.
Cool.
I was wondering, how flexible are the actions or contexts? I know there's probably a standard set, but is there a way to extend that set?
Start at the beginning again, sorry.
Is there a standard? How flexible are the actions or the deep links, the contexts?
Okay, so the interactive post, the call to action labels.
Yeah.
It's a fixed set. We have over 100 of what we've heard of the most common, and we're always up to add some more ones that you think would help a larger population. Cool.
Hi. Basically, it's very exciting to see the sign-in process to give access to developers for actual user data. When would you think that we'd be able to get access for friend data so we could build smarter algorithms for finding out friend affinity or content analysis and things like that off of, say, the pages that your friends actually like on Google+?
So in the beginning, I talked about security and privacy.
Mm-hmm.
And the model we're building right now is the user has to authenticate, and we're being very conservative on what user data you get. So when a user does sign in, we allow them to give you access to their flat circles. And that includes the public Google ID, first name, last name, and profile picture. I don't know if we're ever going to go to that direction, but we'd love to hear your use cases and see how we can make them happen.
Sure.
Cool. I think we're done for time. I'll be around here after the talk, and of course we have our sandbox where you can ask me and the rest of the team more questions. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.